Today I'll show you how you can create realistic, fleshed out characters in minutes using ChatGPT that would have otherwise taken you hours to do. Let's dive in. Alright everyone, welcome back to the Nerdy Novelist. Today I am going to be looking at character development and how you can flesh out your characters using ChatGPT as your prompt. We're going to be using GPT-4 here today. And if you recall in the last video, we came up with a list of characters, but we didn't really have more than a brief description of who they were. So today we're going to be fleshing that out a little bit more so we understand them better, and that will inform our outline, our story as we go along. So here's the list of characters that we created before, and for this demonstration I'm only going to be going over these three and fleshing them out. So I have a different doc here that I've called Characters. Omnimancer characters, by the way, I gave this a name. It's a working title, but I kind of liked it. It's going to be called The Omnimancer. And I have a bunch of world building and stuff that I was developing on the side that gave me that title idea. But we're going to go ahead and paste these three characters into there so we can start fleshing them out a bit. And let's start with Lira. So I have a prompt here that you can see in this prompt book here that I've created, and you can get this prompt book for free if you go to my website nerdynovelist.com. The link is in the description. But we're going to go over a couple of different things here. So first of all, there's this prompt that I really like to use. Give them each an element of something unexpected, like an unusual hobby, pet peeve, likes, dislikes, etc. that makes their character more interesting. Make sure it is consistent with their character and doesn't clash with the character arc. So, why do I like to do this? I think it is beneficial for every character to have something that's just out of the blue, just something that doesn't really fit with the rest of the story necessarily, as long as it doesn't clash with the story. You'll see this a lot in Brandon Sanderson's characters. A lot of them just have weird little quirks that end up making them a lot more interesting and colorful. So, I'm going to come over here to ChatGPT. Now first we need to let them know who we're talking about. So let's copy these three characters and add them here at the beginning. And let's just give them a little context about what we're doing. Here is a brief list of characters in an epic fantasy story. And then give them each an element of something unexpected. Let's go ahead and run that prompt. Okay, so it gave us a couple of things. We have for Lira, Lira is given a fascination with botany, and Elric, Elric, who is the love interest. By the way, I have changed some of these names a little bit since the last time we met, but Elric is the love interest. Even though he's undead, apparently he has a passion for music and poetry and has a great singing voice. I actually like that. I think I can work with that. And for Master Caro, who is the primary antagonist of this book, even though he's a cruel and manipulative man, he has an unexpected love for animals. And in particular, he has a crow named Umbra. I actually like that. I think that could work. I've already done a little bit of world building into what kind of flora and fauna are in this area, and there's not much. So with Lira in particular, I'm going to rerun this and see if we can find one or two other options that I like better. But for Master Caro, I think having the crow and maybe well, let's say not a love, but maybe a fascination with certain magical creatures, that will work out well. So let's ask it for something better for Lira. Give me let's make it three other options for Lira. And lastly, a deep passion for astronomy and stargazing, an interest that began during your childhood. Actually, I like that one. And I have personal reasons why I like that one, just kind of from my own world building of what this world is going to be looking like and how it might relate to, spoiler alert, other worlds in this cosmos. I think I'm going to go with that. Lira has a fascination for astronomy. All right, so let's go back to our character thing. Under Lira, we're going to add something unique. and then paste that in. I can go in there and modify it later to be a little bit more in line with what I want. And then let's do the same for Elric. And last but not least, Master Caro Blackthorn. All right, so we've got that. That's a pretty good place to start. Let's go back to our prompt sheet. And now we're going to take a look at the biggest prompt that we're going to be using today, which is this one right here. I'll go ahead and copy and paste that into ChatGPT. So what this says is write a character profile about the protagonist slash antagonist slash mentor of this novel. So you choose which role you want. It can be antagonist, protagonist, mentor, villain, arch villain, you know, whatever you want to put in there. I'm going to start with protagonist. And then we want to insert the synopsis. Okay, and I have that back in my brainstorming document. This is the synopsis here. So this is going to be a big prompt if we're including this entire synopsis. But we want to make sure it understands what we have so far. Here's what we know so far about the character, and then we need to insert what we've got so far of the character, which we can do right now. Let's go up to Lira and back to ChatGPT and paste that in. Here's what, oop, no. So I accidentally hit enter and it started going, so I had to stop that and try again. Anyway, so we have the synopsis, the character description as we have it so far, and then we want to make sure we include a few things that we want in this character bio. So a few things that I want here are a physical description. Let's add a little dash to set these apart. A physical description, personality traits, biggest fear, biggest motivation, let's say best strength, backstory. And I think that is probably good to get started with. You could go nuts with this whole thing. You could get really granular with what kind of details you ask for it. I wrote an article a while back about character arcs and how to build a character profile for Kindlepreneur. And that one, we've just got this big long list of things you can talk about. You could take that entire list and stick it in here and it will give you something. But we'll just start with this for now. So I think I've got everything I need here, so let's go ahead and put this in here. All right, we have a decent profile here. We've got a physical description, which I like, although I will probably tweak a few things about it based on what I feel is appropriate. We have some good personality traits. We have her biggest fear, which is losing herself to the darkness of necromancy and becoming a heartless, manipulative person like her father or Master Caro. That's a good one, I think. Biggest motivation. So when I saw this, what I realized is that I had told it to just give us a motivation generally, and there are two types of motivation. There's external and internal. What it gave me here is an external motivation for helping her love Elric and to free the slaves and all of that. That's great external motivation, but we need an internal motivation. So one of the things we can do is select this and then come here to ChatGPT and say, this is a great external motivation. What kind of internal motivation would Lira have? Or actually, I'll feed this in here and then add the question there. Add a question mark and go. And we'll see what it gives us. It kind of gave us a lot here to work with. And Not all of it is really that good in my opinion, but this last paragraph here I actually really loved. As she becomes more involved with the Revenant Rebellion and learns about the wider world, Lyra's internal motivation evolves to include a quest for redemption. She feels a growing sense of responsibility for the suffering caused by necromancers, and she yearns to make amends for her family's actions by using her unique abilities to create a more just and equitable society. I think that's a great internal motivation. And it fits with everything else. Some of this other stuff is kind of general and not so great, so that's good. Going back to our original thing here, we go to her best strength, and it says Lyra's best strength is her ability to communicate with the enslaved dead. Now, this is basing it on her external strength. Like, what literally is setting her apart? And I want something a little bit more personal. And so, personal, internal, however you want to put it. And so let's put this in here and do the same thing, basically. So I'm going to give it a prompt, which is this is a great external strength, but I'm looking for something a little more internal. What are some personality aspects that give Lyra true internal strength? And hit go. Alright, so to sum this up very quickly, basically it's telling us that she is really resilient and determined, and I think that's a good internal strength for her. So we'll need to create a scene at the beginning where we can demonstrate her resilience and how she works with that. But that's good. So back up to what it gave us here. We last have this backstory, and I actually really liked this backstory because it included that really that quirky fascination with astronomy that we had already, and it gave us actually good reasons why she would be interested in astronomy. So let's read this. Lyra was born into a prominent family of necromancers, with her father being a highly respected figure within the Council of Necromancers. Despite her privileged upbringing, Lyra's childhood was marked by loneliness and a sense of isolation. As she struggled to reconcile her family's dark legacy with her own moral beliefs, her interest in astronomy and stargazing provided a much-needed escape from the oppressive atmosphere of her home, allowing her to dream of a world beyond the control of the necromancers. As she grew older and her powers manifested, Lyra was enrolled in the Academy of Necromancy, where she excelled in her studies but found herself increasingly at odds with the practice of necromancy. The discovery of her rare gift and her love for Elric would set her on a path to challenge the very foundations of her society, leading her to become a key figure in the struggle for freedom and justice. So I liked that the astronomy was escape. It was a way of her just like reaching for the stars, almost literally, as a way to get away from her family's oppressive nature. The only thing I might add here is like we got to give her a reason why she's different. Why is she not like her family? That's something I think we can add in later. I don't really need to get that here. So let's go ahead and copy this entire character profile. And we're going to go to our document here and paste this in. And then I'm going to just go through and tidy this up a little bit, add some of those other bits that we got, and we can move on from there. All right, now that I have done a lot of this work to tidy this up, I have a pretty robust description here. And I just want to add one more thing to what this looks like. And we're going to be using these profiles later on, but to try and copy and paste the entire profile into ChatGPT or any other AI program, it's going to be a lot of words, and sometimes it's hard for AI to keep track of everything. So we want to have some kind of quick summary that encapsulates everything that we've mentioned so far, and specifically gives us details that will be useful in the writing later on. So getting things like how does she think? How does she talk? So in her dialogue, what does that look like? Those are things we want to know. And so what we're going to do to get that is we're going to copy this entire character description that we've just put together. Go back to ChatGPT and say, using the following information about Lira, construct one paragraph summarizing everything and give us insights into how she would think and what her dialogue sounds like. Add a colon and then paste all of that in and hit enter. Okay, so it didn't actually do a decent job of this. It gave us a summary, but the summary is still very long. And then it actually gave us some actual thoughts rather than telling us how she would think. So I'm going to try this one more time. I'm going to say make that even shorter and tell us what her dialogue would, let's say, tell us what the style of her dialogue and thoughts would be like without giving us any actual dialogue. Okay, this was a little bit better. Because it says here at the end, Lyra's dialogue and thoughts would be characterized by her determination, curiosity, and moral convictions, often infused with poetic and celestial imagery that reflects her passion for stargazing. I like that. We're definitely going to have to modify it though. So let's take that into our document and put it here under AI Quick Summary. Lyra Thorne, a prodigious necromancy student in her early 20s. We're going to switch this to late teens. Possesses a rare gift for communicating with the enslaved dead. Passionate about astronomy, she's intelligent, resourceful, and empathetic. Driven by love and desire for redemption, she fights against the oppressive rule of necromancers. Despite her privileged upbringing, she struggles with loneliness and seeks a world of peace and freedom for both the living and the dead. Lyra's dialogue and thoughts would be characterized yada yada yada. So we can change this with astronomical or astronomy metaphors. Actually, I'm just going to remove that entirely. This may or may not work. You might have to play around with this when we're actually creating the scenes using this as a character prompt, because very often it will pull from this in ways that aren't appropriate to the scene. So that's why we wanted to shorten everything, so we weren't putting in that entire character profile, but you may have to tweak it for every scene you write, just so you're only giving the relevant information about Lyra for that scene. But this is a good place to start, and we'll be using that later. Now, I might be running out of prompts for what I can do with GPT-4 right now, since I'm only allowed 25 every 3 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and skip these two characters, but basically we would be following the exact same format where we would come up with this large character profile, we would summarize it for this AI quick summary that we need, and continue rinsing and repeating with every single character from then on. And sooner or later, you're left with a whole bunch of really great characters that are well fleshed out, and you can take that and plug it back into the synopsis. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording there, but thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.